Some houses in Quincy continue to crumble. Local safe housing advocates are looking to address what they say is one of its root problems. WGEM's Claire Edlund toured around the city today alongside a volunteer from the Safe and Livable Housing Committee just to see how many houses are not up to code. She reports tonight on what these advocates are saying.
Oh wow, it's really burned
For the
out,
last couple years, Lisa Wagoda has advocated for safe and livable housing alongside a team of volunteers. She says they and the city inspectors will go to houses where landlords have failed to address complaints that tenants have filed.
The city of Quincy has a municipal code that outlines tenant responsibilities, landlord responsibilities, such as doors that lock on the ground floor, heating systems that work, safe wiring.
But she says as more houses continue to fail safety code, more continue to deteriorate.
The laws of Quincy are making it such that tenants and landlords are trying to kind of like solve the problem on the streets.
Wagoda says she and the committee have found that tenants in unsafe housing are often fearful to file a complaint to a landlord who could retaliate.
If they do, they start getting threatened by their landlords. They oftentimes get evicted illegally, even if they're paid up on their rent.
She says both parties need to step up to the plate.
There are people who blame the tenants, and our committee is not at all saying that we don't recognize that there are tenants that need to step up to the plate as well. That is a no-brainer.
Wagoda explains how unsafe living for even just one tenant can affect a whole community.
The tax base goes down, crime goes up, fires go up. So children are growing up in these dangerous situations. And so when they go to our public schools or the private schools, they can't focus as well on their studies, and that affects all the children in the classroom.
Claire Edlund, WGEM News, Quincy.
And Wagoda says she would like to see City Council pass an ordinance that would hold more landlords accountable and provide money for more inspectors.